This conference
I'm
will now be recorded.
right. I've come into the offices because it makes life much easier for me. I have Karen on my right and Debbie in facing me. I think the first thing was Karen will explain how it will work and if anything goes wrong with the connections at any stage.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you all for being present. First of all, I know we've had the trials recently, but can I just remind everybody that when you're not speaking, can you mute your mic? And if for some reason there are connection issues, I would first of all suggest you use you knock your camera off as well, and then obviously just speak. And as long as you can be heard and we can hear you, those are the main rules from Welsh Government, that we follow the regulations. Otherwise, I think that's everything. We do have the chat facility on the side of the screen, but I think we can see most of you. And I think the chairman, if he can't get a general consensus on an agreement, he'll probably go round the room and ask you individually to say whether you're happy or not with the reports. So thank you all. Otherwise, you just raise your hand and we can see your hand.
Good. Well, I hope that's clear. So we'll start the agenda. Firstly, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. Mr. Alexander and Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Councillor Griffiths, we haven't heard from. Councillor Cuddy, you've appeared now, or at least on my screen. We haven't heard from Councillor Griffiths, have we?
Sorry, Chair, no. And I can see that, unfortunately, on the screen, Councillor Bird, who's here for agenda item 4, is being recorded as Councillor Ben Gray, but it is Councillor Bird.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's okay. It's just for the record.
Thank you. So the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March, hopefully you've read those. Can I take those as being a true copy of what was said? Perhaps you can raise your hands if that's the case. Those were present. Good. Are there any objections to any of them as not being accurate? No. Okay. So that'll be accepted as being true minutes of that meeting. Now we have received declarations of interest, and Councillor Bird, thank you for joining us. Councillor Griffiths, you've joined us now as well. Welcome to the meeting. And perhaps I can pass over to Debbie to deal with the application by Councillor Bird.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see from the report, this is an application from Councillor Bird. His application is attached to the report together with the circumstances when a Standards Committee may grant a dispensation. The details of the specific application being sought are set out in paragraph 2.2 of the covering report. I think it's important to flag up that on this particular occasion, Councillor Bird is not of the view that he has a personal or prejudicial interest. And I think that is right, having liaised with Councillor Bird. And this is specifically dealing with the issue of seeking Standards Committees indication, given the sensitivity of this matter, that Councillor Bird be permitted to continue to speak discuss and party to the vote relating to the planning application in respect of the St Nicholas School, which is due shortly to go before the planning committee. The particular point to bear in mind is that Councillor Bird, because of the fact that the school is within his electoral ward, he has provided some support in suggesting some alternative sites for the new school. The actual site for the new school will be the existing school site, but it is purely because he has had those discussions previously. And I think it is important for this to come before Standards Committee, bearing in mind that Councillor Bird is the chair of the Planning Committee, and also he is the member for the Wenvo, Bonvilston and St Nicholas ward. I know that Councillor Bird is here and he may wish to make some comments or deal with any queries that may arise this morning. I think also I should add that in addition to the circumstances referred to in the application in respect of paragraphs E and I think paragraph F may also be relevant, which provides that the participation of the member in the business to which the interest relates is justified by the member's particular role or expertise.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bird, for joining us. Can I take it you haven't any financial interest in the land where the school might be sited?
No, absolutely no financial interest whatsoever.
Right. Well, I'm happy with the situation. Does anybody have any questions? Mrs. Hallett?
I totally agree with what. Can you hear me?
Yes. Not now. No, can't hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think Mr. Watkins needs to mute his whilst Mrs. Hallett speaks.
Sorry. Thank you.
She's off now. I can't hear you, Mrs. Hallett, I'm afraid. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's better, yes.
Great, thank you. I was only going to say that I totally support what Debbie's saying, in that Mr. Bird, Councillor Bird, sorry, brings along with him some expertise which they will probably need to use in making decisions. So I thoroughly support the application in line with F.
Thank you. Mrs. Tinsley? No problems. Mr. Watkins?
No problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councillor Cuddy?
No problems. I also observe that there's another code in operation here, which is to do with the consideration of planning applications. So a double strand of issues to deal with, but I've had no problems with the request.
Mr. Watkins, sorry, did you want to say something?
My only concern is should we be granting a dispensation where there is no interest? Isn't there another way of advising or giving an indication without granting a dispensation? If there is no prejudicial interest, should we be granting a dispensation because of a prejudicial interest?
Yes, I take your point. I'm looking at Debbie for the answer to that one.
Yes, thank you. I think certainly Councillor Bird has indicated that he doesn't believe he has a personal prejudicial interest, and certainly as monitoring officer, having considered the matter, I think that is right. I think as part of the recommendation, we should be acknowledging the application, the justification being put forward, and then noting that that's in effect that the view is that in effect that there is not a personal prejudicial interest, but I think the process needs to be seen to be worked through.
Yes, I think that's to be. Sorry, Mr. Watkins, carry on.
Yeah, I accept that point. It's just that isn't there another way of doing this? For example, role and function of the Standards Committee is to assist councillors to observe the Code of Conduct. Well, couldn't we just give a general indication of our view without actually granting a dispensation? That's my point.
We could, but my view is it's better to err on the to be safe rather than sorry.
I have every sympathy with the councillor, but I'm just wondering from the committee's point of view, given that we are a creature of statute, we can only do what we're empowered to do. Should we be granting a dispensation where it seems that a dispensation isn't needed?
Another suggestion could be to record in the recommendation that the view is that in light of the comments from Councillor Bird and the view of the committee, it doesn't appear to be a personal and prejudicial interest, but if there was, we would be minded to grant it in line with paragraphs E, F and I.
Yeah, I think that I'd find that acceptable.
Thank you. That's belts and braces, I think. Councillor Griffiths, do you have any comments?
No comment from me, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray?
No comment from me, Chair.
Yeah. Well, Councillor Bird, if there's anything you want to say, but you've heard what we think of it. If there was a need to refer it, it would be granted, but it's going to be granted in any event.
Yes, thank you all. I did realise this was a very borderline case, but because it's such a prominent application, I just wanted kind of external views. I'd had Debbie's external view, and to have the backing of Standards Committee, I think is beneficial. It just makes it, makes us all open, and I would feel a lot more comfortable. So I thank you all for your time. And once this bit of business is dealt with, I will leave you to the rest of your committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Right. I think I missed agenda 3, which was to receive declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to any matters being raised today? You're all shaking your heads. Councillor Gray.
Sorry, I was just, if we've done the declarations first, I was just going to note that whilst Councillor Bird is a member of my group in the council, and whilst I'm Vice Chair of the Planning Committee and he's Chair of the Planning Committee, I do not have a personal relationship away from the council, therefore I don't believe I have an interest, but I'd like it noted. I obviously do have a knowledge of Councillor Bird over and above maybe other councillors, but I don't think I need any reason to leave the meeting.
Thank you very much. Karen, do you want to say something?
Yes, Chair, if you don't mind. It's not a matter to record for the minutes per se, because they've been approved with accuracy. But what I'd like to reflect is at the last meeting of the Standards Committee, Councillor Gray clearly noted in the minutes as apologies for absence. He was actually present at the meeting, and for clarity, I've spoken to Councillor Gray and I've said I would raise today the fact that the only reason he left the meeting was because we had to ask a member of the council to leave because we were over numbers, as referred to in paragraph 8.3 so of the Constitution. So if you're happy, I will note that in the declarations for the minutes for this meeting to clarify it for him, for the public. Is that okay?
Yes, and it is because of the the makeup of the committee, in line with the constitution, requires that half of the members in attendance at any of the standards committee meetings is to be made up of independent members. And because we had more councillors than independent members, Councillor Gray kindly agreed to withdraw.
Yes. You probably picked that up, but Mrs. Hallett and Mr. Watkins, because you were neither of you were here for good reason, the numbers of independent were one less than the numbers of councillors, so one councillor had to withdraw, and so that's what happened. Right, thank you.
Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Hennicott. In terms of the minutes, then I had problems with my RSA token, so I couldn't get into the meeting at the very beginning. Are we saying that the original minutes won't be amended, but you're making a note on this set of minutes? Right. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
That's normal procedure, Councillor Gray. We amend the minutes subject to the subject to discussion at the meeting when they're approved. So I will note that in these minutes. We don't retrospectively go back over minutes and amend them as a council.
Okay. I thought we did for accuracy, because at the end of the day, it says in there I was absent, and doesn't necessarily completely reflect what happened. That's what we communicated over email. I thought that we were amending the minutes.
It's recorded in these minutes. It doesn't actually go back and amend the minutes that are on for the last meeting. But this meeting will record it, and we will make sure that the fact that you were there will actually be addressed in the list that's supplied on the website of members' attendance at meetings. So it will be addressed.
Okay. Well, all right. We'll have a chat about it another time then. Thank you.
Well, I'm not particularly happy with that because
I think it's a bit bizarre that we can't amend what's already in the minutes. But there we go.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Gray. I mean, we voted that those are a true record. No, just a minute. We voted that those are a true record. Well, it now transpires they weren't. The way it's put, it wasn't a true record. Can we not amend them? Yeah.
I've just had a quick discussion with Karen. Karen is absolutely spot on that what she's advised is certainly our in-house style. But what I would suggest, if the committee's in agreement, that we put a footnote on the set of minutes from the March meeting advising how that they've been amended on the point of accuracy that's been raised.
Yeah, right. I think that's the better way, that it can be recorded that Councillor Gray was present, but he had to leave the meeting for the reason set out there. Okay, Councillor Gray. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If that's what it's best, thanks.
We'll now move on to the forward work programme in 2020-21. Can I just say that it's put in there that there's a planned meeting for the 1st of October. It was my fault, if fault's the right word, that had to change because I couldn't make it. And I suggested it was brought forward, and I think today suited most people. So in fact, the intention was that this meeting would replace that one on the 1st of October. But with that comment just explaining the background, perhaps I can pass this now over to Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. That's absolutely right with regards to the date of the October proposed meeting, if I can put it like that. The reason it has been put in the forward work programme with the note in the margin is that does appear as a date in the calendar of meetings for the council, but I would anticipate that committee today may wish to have some discussion, bearing in mind the proximity to today's meeting, that the 1st of October meeting comes out of the calendar. I think it's also important to flag up that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the council's annual meeting, whereas normally it would be held before the end of May, new regulations have been introduced which have enabled us to set a date later than the end of May, as long as the annual meeting is held before the end of this calendar year. The Vale of Glamorgan Council's annual meeting will be held next Monday, the 14th of September. And so it'll be the meeting immediately following the Standards Committee meeting, immediately following the annual meeting, that the chair and the vice chair of this committee will be on the agenda and will be agreed. As we're on the point about dates of meetings, I'd also like to raise that, as you'll be aware, there is the matter relating to the hearing concerning a councillor from a community councillor, and that hearing arrangements are ongoing for that to be held, and I would hope that would be prior to the 26th of November. Because the hearing will be before the Standards Committee, albeit I understand there might be a reduced number on that committee, so that the member who is the subject of the hearing won't feel sort of too overwhelmed with too many members dealing with the matter, that I would suggest that if it is agreed by the committee that the 1st of October meeting comes out of the calendar for this committee, that when the hearing is dealt with, that the chair and the vice chair elected for that meeting are only for that meeting, as opposed for the whole of the municipal year. And so I would propose that if it is the decision that the 1st of October meeting doesn't go ahead, that the chair and the vice chair of the Standards Committee for the municipal year is dealt with as at the 26th of November meeting. So I wanted to raise that because obviously we're looking at the forward work programme, and we would incorporate the election of chair and vice chair for the 26th of November if the committee is in agreement.
Thank you very much for that. I'm anxious that the matter concerning that councillor is dealt with sooner rather than later, because I don't think, I think delayed justice is bad justice. So I have been raising the matter, and I think a letter is going out to try and fix a date shortly. But subject to that, are there any points, firstly, on the dates of the next meeting? Has anybody got any issues on those? No. So we agree that there's no meeting on the 1st of October, but that there will be hopefully a meeting prior to the 26th of November to deal with that, that case. Good. The work is set out there. Are there any comments on that? Or Debbie, is there anything you want to add?
Well, in the light of our discussion, I'll add into the forward work programme that as at the 26th of November, the committee will deal with the appointment of the chair and vice chair for the municipal year. And then, as we've said, hopefully the hearing will take place prior to that, and the chairman and vice chairman will only be appointed for that particular meeting. Other than that, the only other point that I think is worth adding into the forward work programme, subject to any views that members may have, is that as at the 28th of January 2021, is for an update to be provided on the relevant provisions of the Local Government and Elections Wales Bill/Act, which is currently receiving consideration before the Senedd.
Thank you very much. Anybody like it to raise any issues with regard to the programme forward work? Mrs. Tinsley?
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, in terms of the independent reviews of the community and town councils, when will we get further information about which ones are running, how they're running, and how we'll be able to join in with those, and how we're going to schedule that between us so that we're not all turning up to the same meeting?
Karen, are you able to deal with that?
Yes, Chair. I was going to, well, Debbie was going to raise it at item 6. I've today had a complete list through of the Town and Community Council meeting dates going forward. And what I was suggesting, I was going to send this out to all members, and then I'd coordinate it with all co-opted members, like we did last time, on discussing, you know, the best way forward for you, and so that we're not clashing with you both going out, you know, 2 people going out at the same time. So if you're happy, that was going to be my suggestion on item 6, that Debbie was going to take the report later. Is that okay?
That sounds fine to me. Yes, thank you. Mrs. Hallett, did you have something you wanted to raise?
Yes, please. Just a question. The panel that's going to hear the hearing that we talked about earlier on remains the same. It's unchanged, is it?
I would have thought so, yes. You were absent last time. We did receive training in that, so I wouldn't. I would have thought we would. I mean, my personal view is 5 is a bit is very strong, is too many, but it's pointed out that actually strictly he should appear before the whole of the Standards Committee. Well, which would be what, 10? Would it 8, 10? So, which does seem in this day of human rights to be pretty onerous. So for the time being, we will continue with the same who received the 5 who indicated and received training.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anything else on that item? No. Well, the next item is report following observations at Town and Community Council committee meetings. Well, I assume there haven't been any, but we've now got I think it's fair to say the council is getting back to, well, not quite normality, but something like it. So perhaps, Debbie, you can deal with that point, please.
Yes, thank you. Attached to the report is the calendar of meetings for the Vale of Glamorgan Council. As Karen has mentioned, she'll be sending out the schedule of meetings that we've received now in respect of all of the town and community councils, which I think was no mean feat in collating. So my thanks to Karen and her team for that. And that'll be shared with members. So certainly my understanding is that no meetings have been observed since the last meeting, and certainly that's understandable. I think certainly as far as the Vale of Glamorgan Council is concerned, we put on hold meetings after the 23rd of March and then restarted with Cabinet in July. And I think a number of the town and community councils also, because of the necessary restrictions, did reduce the number of their meetings. The only point I think is worth making in addition is the expectation would be for members only to attend virtually the meetings of town and community councils rather than attending in person. And obviously that'll be another area that support will be provided to coordinate that with the clerks from the various town and community councils. And I think previously members over the municipal year attended 2 meetings, and as we are partway through the municipal year, it might be a matter that the committee would like to give some consideration as to whether the numbers are reduced to 1 per independent member.
Yes. Well, I think if we're having the next meeting effectively at the end of November, if we can perhaps try and attend 1 virtually by November, and then we can see where we are by that stage. Is that all right for the independent members? Yes, Mrs. Hallett?
I'm not sure we're putting Karen on a tight time scale, because it must be rather a heavy job to collate all the information about what systems they're using for virtual observations. Maybe we can move on the Vale of Glamorgan Council meetings, because they are resuming, I understand from the minutes, in September. So we should be able to at least go and attend those. But are we putting Karen on the spot with having a tight time scale for November? Karen?
Yes, well, all right. Well, yes, well, if we can do it by the end of the year, say, she will liaise with us. And if we can do 1 by the end of the year, and possibly we'll review it then as to whether we need to do 1 again by the end of March. Mr. Watkins?
Well, presumably,
sorry, Mr. Watkins, sorry. Mrs. Hallett, we haven't finished on her point. Right. Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Hallett.
I still think we're putting Karen on a tight timescale, but if she's agreeable with that timescale, I'm just thinking we can move on the actual council meetings, because they will be resuming and the systems are up and running. But when we look in the town and county, I just can't, sorry, town committees, I just think that it's really a tight timescale. But then if Karen can meet it, that's fine.
Yep.
But presumably the community councils will be responsible for setting up the communication on these meetings, will it?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And we can assist you as far, officers from my team can assist you as best as possible. But yes, it will be up to the town and community councils to do that. Thank you, Mrs. Hallett, for your kind words in relation to the team. Thank you very much. What I have got is an in-person virtually detail, which actually details for each town and community council what platform they will be using. And the majority of them at the moment are saying they're going to use Zoom. So it should be fairly reasonable for us before the end of the year to actually assist you with doing this. And I'm glad that you mentioned to November, because that would be relatively tight for us all, but the end of the year should be fine. Thank you.
Good.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, Mrs. Hallett, sorry.
I'm sorry to come back again, but I'm not clear. As far as the town councils, yes, that's fine. I understand that. But what about the county, the Vale of Glamorgan committees? I mean, they should be ready and up and running for us to move on those. Is that right?
Yes.
Because they are assuming they.
Yeah. Yes, that should be relatively straightforward. Yes. So if you want to attend one of those virtually, when you get you've got the list there, you can liaise with Karen and attend.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We'll send you the details of what platform we'll be using, and if you choose a meeting after November, the first 2 weeks of November, it's highly likely the council will be moving to the platform called Teams. And again, if you need to have any trial meetings, one of my team members, and particularly myself, will be able to do that if you're not familiar with Teams. So yeah, we can assist you always, as long as you let us know which ones you're looking at, and then we can avoid clashes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen.
Right, thank you very much. Let's move on to item 7, the audit brief, members' code of conduct. Debbie, do you want to speak to that item?
Yes, thank you. This is to bring to members' attention that there is an ongoing routine internal audit being carried out. I've attached at Appendix 1 the audit brief, and you can see set out within that the scope of the audit. And also I've attached at Appendix 2 the questionnaire that has been sent out by Internal Audit to all members of the Vale of Glamorgan Council. So at this stage it's a report for noting, and with one additional recommendation that a further report be brought back advising of the outcome of the audit. So it's for noting at this stage with that additional recommendation.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on that?
Just one question, please, Chair. Does this involve all the councillors or just a select sample group, or does it involve everyone?
Yeah, my understanding from speaking with the team leader from Internal Audit is that it will be all Vale of Glamorgan councillors, but I can certainly clarify that point, and I can send an email out to members following the meeting.
Perhaps we can just pick it up when we do the report, when we do the findings. That would be fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Move on to the adjudicational panel for Wales, the annual report. This is 18 to 19, isn't it? And I see they had one case which they dealt with satisfactorily. Are there any questions on this report or any issues that anybody wants to raise? I don't think we need Debbie to go through it again. Anybody particularly interested? No?
Well,
no?
Just to echo your comments, it was one case. It's not difficult to hit your targets when you've got one case. And the cost of that one case is quite enormous when you look at the expenditure of the panel.
37,000, wasn't it? Something like that.
Yeah.
Does the president get paid for this? Don't minute that. Okay, well, sorry, Mrs. Hallett, do you want to say something? Yes.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that they just appointed 2 new legal advisors to their team. And if you look at these statistics, I mean, they seem to have a well-established team or a well-numbered team there.
Yes. Noted, I think, is the best way of dealing with that.
Yes, I think you're right.
Well, perhaps we're all doing our job so well that they haven't got appeals from us anyway. We move on to item 9, the correspondence with the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales.
Thank you, Chairman. As you appreciate, this is a similar report to the Part 2 report, and as part of our moves for transparency, I have this report in Part 1 of the agenda, but because of the nature of the correspondence that I have with the Ombudsman, it will be necessary to advise members verbally of that in Part 2 of the agenda. So it's a standard report providing members with an update of that communication between myself and the Ombudsman's office.
Thank you for that. No items have been brought to my attention that are urgent. Is Karen or Debbie? Nothing? No? Good. So that